Hi and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Karel van Heulen. I'm Product Manager at Televic Conference, and today I'm joined by Frédéric Pézin, also Product Manager at our distributor in France.
Hello everyone.
Today we are going to talk about conference solutions and how these solutions can be used in a boardroom to deliver exceptional audio and video quality in order to increase the participation of all the participants. Before we start, maybe some housekeeping. So we'll have a 30 minutes webinar. You have the chance to ask questions in the chat or in the questions tab. You can also see that there will be a poll, or in fact 3 different polls, where we ask some questions. If you answer them all, you have a chance to win an Amazon gift card, so stay alert for that. If you want to watch this webinar later on, you will receive a link after this webinar. If you did not receive that, you can still watch the webinar on our website. So if you go to our website, televic.com/conference, you will be able to see all webinars, not only this one, but also the previous ones. As I said, questions can be addressed in the chat. Without further ado, we'll start with this presentation. So today we're going to talk about how we can, in fact, transform the boardroom with conference equipment. So we talk about how, in fact, we can ensure optimal audio and video quality with smart audio control, but also with our camera control integrations and also with our uniCOS delegate unit. Then we'll talk about how we can integrate conference equipment with Teams, Zoom, and any other video conferencing platform. And at last, we'll have a comparison, or let's say discuss a little bit more the differences between a conference system and other solutions on the market, and that I will do with Frédéric Pézin. So now let's start with the first one. Let's see how we can, in fact, increase our experience with optimal audio and video. If you have a boardroom, or let's say in a room in a corporate environment, you will see that individual microphones will still allow a better, or let's say an optimal audio quality. It's still the most efficient way or most optimal way to have clear and consistent audio throughout the room. With individual microphones, you also have the possibility to have, let's say, speaker identification. Why is this important? Well, you can know exactly who is speaking, for example, for camera control, but also for other solutions like transcription or recording. Because it's an individual unit that has both a microphone and a loudspeaker unit and easy cabled, the installation goes quite easily. You do not need to take into account the room acoustics of a room. In fact, everything installs right away. It's a scalable solution also, since it does not matter on how big or how large your room is. You can easily add units up till hundreds of units, in fact. What also makes a conference solution unique is the fact that you have an individual button on each unit, which allows you to also mute your conversation. So if you have a private conversation that cannot be recorded, for example, or cannot be sent towards the remote side, you can press the mute button. And how can a conference system help you with, let's say, improved video quality? Well, in fact, when you have a boardroom with external cameras, pan-tilt zoom cameras, you can actually position the camera really focused on the active speaker, thanks to the fact that you press the microphone button. So you can have high quality video feeds of the active speaker by just having automated camera control by the microphone activation. It's also easily integrated with any kind of conference system. So this is really a benefit of an individual unit of a conference system. Okay, so this is regarding the video. Now, in terms of audio, also here, we see that in a boardroom or more in a corporate context, not everybody wants to press the microphone button, which is normally the case with a conference system. So that's the reason why we introduced the hands-free microphone mode. So what does it mean, hands-free? First of all, you have, let's say, the dynamic mix minus. That means that everybody will hear in the room everybody else very clearly, except his or her own microphone. So we have a dynamic mix minus in that sense. Gain sharing means that you do not, all microphones are always open. You do not need to press the microphone button, and only the active speaker will be increased in gain and the others will be lowered. And in combination with that, we do have speech detection. That means that the active speaker will be indicated through the LED on the microphone, but also through an API on our system, so that we can activate third-party camera control systems to position the camera to the microphone where the person is speaking. And last but not least, we also allow the button not to activate the microphone, but to actually mute the microphone. So all microphones are always open, unless you press the microphone button to mute the microphone to have a private conversation. Now, this has been explained in a previous webinar. If you want to know more about that, please check out the webinar about audio routing on our website. You will easily find more information there. Okay? So let's go now to the first poll, the first question. Please do answer this not in the chat, but answer this in the poll section in the last tab of your screen. And the question is here: what microphone mode do you mostly use for Televic installations in the boardroom? Do you use hands-free? Do you use push-to-talk? Do you use request-to-talk? Or do you say, I don't know, I have never experienced that before? So we just want to know from your experience, what is the most commonly used microphone modes? Give some time for that. Okay. And now let's move on to the next section. So in terms of video quality, we do have actually a problem sometimes with boardrooms. Boardrooms tend to be very long and small. And this can cause sometimes a line of sight issue. What does it mean? Actually, it's not always easy to capture the active speaker with a pen-tilt zoom camera. If you have a very long room and the person is speaking very far away, sometimes other people are obstructing the camera, which makes the line of sight quite difficult. But also in the other direction, it's becoming quite difficult. If you want to look at the screen and you're sitting far away or others are sitting in front of you, you do not always have the possibility to look at the screen. So line of sight is really an issue here in boardrooms. What is a solution, or what could be a solution, is our uniCOS multimedia unit. uniCOS has the advantage of having a display and a built-in camera to make it possible for the delegate to look at the display in front of him. But also the camera can capture the speaker right in front of this, in the face of the speaker. That means that you do not have a bad viewing angle on the active speaker. You do see the viewing angle from the speaker in the face. And this person can really have a natural conversation with the others because he has everything in front of them and he does not need to look on the left or the right side of him. Okay, so in that case, let's say for boardrooms where you need to have natural conversations, uniCOS is really a solution. Another benefit of using uniCOS in a boardroom is the fact that sometimes a boardroom needs to be very flexible. It means to be set up quite easy or to be rearranged quite easily. Also, the number of participants can change quite often. So in terms of having a lot of presets and so on, changing a number of participants is not an issue, and you do not need to change the presets when there are more or less delegates in the room, or you do not need to change the presets when the room itself is changed in terms of setup. So the camera of uniCOS makes sure that it always follows the active speaker without changing any camera presets. So in that sense, especially for remote participants, uniCOS is a good solution. Okay. So to make a summary of that, uniCOS is a solution, it's an all-in-one solution because you have a camera, built-in camera, you have a display, and of course you have the audio capturing, and the loudspeaker all together in one device. It's also very easy to simplify the room setup. You just put a unit in the room, and regardless of where the unit or where the delegate is sitting, you can easily adjust this. And it's also easy to integrate with the remote participation platform or remote meeting platform like Teams and Zoom. And that's something that we will discuss in the next session. But if you want to know more about uniCOS, please visit our previous webinar or one of the previous webinars. It's also available on our website. Okay, so let's now talk more about the integration with Teams and Zoom. Okay, so as we talked about uniCOS, it's an, let's say, all-in-one solution. It's easy to bring remote and on-site delegates all together in a very efficient way and without having, let's say, line-of-sight issues. Okay, how does it actually work? We'll have a look at the architecture. So you have always a central unit, of course, that has some uniCOS device connected to that. Also, we can add some video input boxes with video request buttons connected to this. So you have, let's in this case, 4 uniCOS devices for 4 participants in the room. You have 2 video input boxes, and then we need 2 video output boxes and 1 video input box. Why? Well, actually, we can connect this with an Teams, an MTR, for example, so a Teams room, where we put the video output box, there we put the output of the active speaker, so the person that is speaking, the camera of the uniCOS will capture that speaker. We'll put it on the video output box, and then with an HDMI to USB converter, you can easily insert this in an MTR of Teams, so that you can have, let's say, the image of the active speaker in the room as a virtual webcam in your Teams. You can also bring the presentation, for example, a PowerPoint presentation or any other HDMI input that is coming from the video input boxes towards the MTR. So you can use the contents of the presentation, PowerPoint presentation, you bring it out of the video box and you insert it directly through HDMI in the MTR. And then, as a last step, you only need to insert, let's say, the image of the remote participants into the conference system, and that you do through the video input box. And if you do that, all delegates in the room will have on their uniCOS the remote delegates close by. So they can look at the remote delegates in front face, and remote delegates will see the actual delegates in the room close by without having, let's say, a bad viewing angle because they need to look to the left or the right. Okay? So that way we can have a good installation or good integration with Teams, Zoom, and other video conference solutions. Together with that, we see that collaboration equity is becoming more important and is more and more sought after. So what is collaboration equity? It's in fact the ability for all meeting participants, be it remote and be it on-site, to have the same meeting experience, regardless if you're sitting remote or at home, regardless of what device you're using, regardless of the language you're speaking, regardless of, let's say, any experience level. So with uniCOS, you can really offer this in a boardroom and make sure that, in fact, everybody is seen, heard, engaged, and valued as much as possible. Okay? Now, we can even move it further. So if we talk about meeting equity, then we want to have, for example, all speakers seen in the same way. Traditionally, if you just would put, let's say, different speakers from the room in a Teams or a Zoom session, then you would need to make a quadrant view of the active speakers in the room, and then all the remote speakers would be much larger. Now, with Zoom, for example, it's possible to have 4 individual video streams coming from the room that can be sent towards the remote participants. So that means that you can extract 4 video cameras from your uniCOS towards an individual video output box, insert them in your Zoom room, and have them available as individual participants. So here you see, for example, that we have 4 video output boxes. On each video output box, we can put an individual stream of a camera of a uniCOS unit. So here you see, for example, what does it mean? So if you would not have this, you would see this kind of picture. So that means that you have, let's say, 3 remote participants, and then 4 smaller pictures of people in the room that are, let's say, composed by an external composer and then sent to our teams. Now, with Zoom, it's possible to send 4 individual streams, and then people at home will see them also as equal as the other remote participants. So you will have, let's say, in this case, 7 discrete or 7 equal streams. How do we achieve this? Well, actually, to achieve this, you need, of course, those 4 video output boxes, but you also need to make use of our video routing capabilities. Through an API, it's possible to select the actual output of every video output box. So based upon the microphone activation, you can send an API call and say, okay, now microphone 4 is active, so please put microphone 4 on video output box 1. And you can make it as dynamic, so you can, in fact, make it, you can create the behavior as you want for your meeting room. In that way, it's very easy to have dynamic participation and make the meeting much more lively for all participants, remote and on-site. Okay, so it's time for our next poll. And the question here is, just for us to know, what video conference solution do you mostly use in combination with Televic installations? Is it Microsoft Teams? Do you mostly use Zoom or WebEx, any other platform? Or do you almost never integrate with Televic solutions? Okay, gives you 1 second. And then we'll move to the third topic, which is conference units of conference solutions versus other solutions. So if you look to a boardroom, in fact, there are multiple solutions there that you can have to, let's say, to have hybrid meetings. You typically see boundary microphones. Boundary microphones are, let's say, the small surface solutions where you can capture the audio. The advantage is that it's less visual obstructive than gooseneck microphones. It has, let's say, the second best solution for direct sound quality. Of course, a gooseneck is still the most optimal, but if you do not want to have this visual obtrusive solution, then you can use a boundary microphone. It's scalable. You can put many of them if you want to, but there are some problems with that also. So in fact, you have not always the possibility to see who is actually speaking, especially if I have one boundary microphone for multiple participants. So speaker identification is not that easy, especially if you want to use camera tracking, for example. It's not always easy to know who is speaking. Private conversations are not possible. There is not a mute button unless you would install an extra button to that to make it possible to mute the microphone. And of course, it needs to be mounted on the table. That means that you will have some sounds of the table or sometimes paper shuffling or pencil tapping, or even papers covering the microphone, so that could be always an issue. And of course, you need to drill some holes in the table to install boundary microphones. And maybe a last remark on that. So this is only a microphone solution. It's not sound lift is not possible. So in the room, a reinforcement of the audio is needs to be done on another way. So this is first solutions, boundary microphones, ceiling microphones. So with beamforming technology, microphone arrays that allow you to really have dedicated lobes towards the active speaker. So recently we saw that the advance of noise reduction features in the current DSPs makes it possible to have really improvements on audio quality, so that ceiling microphones can become a quite good technology and has improved, let's say, much more than 10 years ago. And the big advantage here, of course, is that they are very unobtrusive, so nothing is on the table. It's also very easy to have a flexible seating, so you can really walk around. In fact, you do not need to have a dedicated or a static seat. It also comes with some issues. Well, first of all, of course, again, speaker identification. It's possible you can have some lobes, but mostly it's limited to 8. So if you have more than 8, then it becomes quite difficult to do, for example, camera tracking or, let's say, transcription, recording for individual participants. Private conversations are not possible. You do not have a button, so you cannot really mute if you want to say something in private. And depending on the room acoustics, you could have more or better results. So it's sometimes if you have a lot of, let's say, glass or something, it's becoming difficult to use a ceiling microphone. And in general, you need to tune it, so you need to have a quite complex installation progress. So some configurations needed to have an optimal audio quality. Okay. Third option is a soundbar, which is quite similar to a ceiling microphone. So it's you don't see anything on the table. It's quite nice, no visual disturbance. It also allows for flexible seating or flexible room setup, which is another advantage of a soundbar. And comes, of course, with similar issues. So if you want to have speaker identification, it's possible up to certain limits, but not always. You cannot have these private conversations neither here. And also it's depending on the room acoustics if you have a good audio quality or not. And of course, voice lifting is not possible with a soundbar. Now, the fourth solution in boardroom is then, of course, our conference solutions. Here, of course, the main benefit is that you have the most optimal audio quality. It's clear and consistent audio, regardless of the size of your room or the acoustics of your room. You can have a perfect speaker identification. You can know who is sitting where. You can use that for camera tracking, for transcription, for recording, and so on. You have the possibility to mute your microphone. So you can actually push the button to mute it. Or you can use it in the other way. You can say, okay, I just want to push the button when I want to talk. So depending on the microphone mode, you can configure the way you have your meeting. It's rather easy to install. You have the possibility to use a wired system, and then it's just a wiring system, and you do not need to configure a lot in terms of, let's say, DSP settings. If you have a wireless setup, it's even easier. You just put it on the table and turn on the system. It's also scalable, of course. It does not matter how big your room is. The number of units that you can use are quite limited. And big advantage of a conference system is, of course, that you have the speaker in the unit itself, so you have the voice lift in the room available. Of course, you also have some issues, and the problems that come within the conference solution are, in most of the cases, it's you have the visual disturbance of a microphone on your table, which makes it sometimes annoying for people to have something in front of them. Also, you need to have a static seating, so people need to know where they need to sit. Of course, if you have hands-free, for example, as a microphone mode, you can still walk around. You can, and the audio will be picked up by any of the microphones. So in that way, you could also have a solution. So as a summary, you could say, on different, depending on what you want to achieve, you could choose another solution. In terms of audio quality, conference system is still, with a gooseneck, an individual gooseneck, is still the best solution. If you want to identify the speaker for recording, for camera tracking, You can do that with ceiling or ceiling microphone soundbars to some extent, but if you want to have it really focused, then a conference system is the best solution. Private conversations are only possible if you have a button available, so therefore a conference system is also preferred. In terms of installation, well, you have different options depending on how you install it, what you want to achieve. They're quite similar. Sound lifting is to some extent possible with ceiling microphones. There are some limitations there, of course, but it is most optimal with a conference solution. But if we talk about, if it needs to be, if it cannot be visually obstructive, then of course a conference system is not the right choice. And if you want to walk around, if you have, let's say, a more dynamic way of having meetings where speakers can not only sit behind on their seat, but can walk around, then a ceiling microphone and soundbar can easily follow that. A conference system can do that, but of course, then you need to put it into the hands-free mode and make sure that all microphones are open all time. Okay, let's now have a discussion with Frederik about his experience with these different solutions. So Frederik, as you have experience both with Televic conference equipment and other solutions, what actually is most expected in a boardroom? What kind of solution?
I would first of all say that in a meeting room, one important point is to be heard perfectly and to be able to hear others. Most of these rooms are now interconnected with video conferencing solutions as WebEx, Zoom, Teams, to manage hybrid meetings. And the increasing use of on-demand video conferencing is also a rising awareness of the importance of audio quality. For this reason, capturing speech audio from multiple users in a meeting room is not an easy task. And I would say that capturing high-quality audio in medium and large spaces is an even greater challenge.
Yes, indeed. And what solutions do we have? We already discussed some. Can you maybe explain?
But I think in the market today we can find different solutions, which are all available, of course, each with its own advantages and disadvantages, depending on the use expected. I am mainly thinking to boundary microphones, ceiling microphone, soundbars, and of course conference solutions.
So we discussed this indeed, but for you, what factors need to be taken into account?
In most boardrooms are most of the time of a very high standard, made of high quality materials, and they can also be classified, be located in listed buildings, and they all have their very own acoustic. So the use expected by users is one of the factors, I think, important. Of course, the number of participants, the limitations of the rooms, and at the end, the easiest to use, the better.
Yeah. And how about then a ceiling microphone? How would you judge that?
But solutions that offer a number of advantages and are indeed currently offered by a number of major brands. That's modern solution. For users, it's often the answer to not having a device in front of them. And that solutions linked to advanced audio processing in most of the time, just also to reduce the background noise and also noises we can imagine.
Okay. So you talked about that. Now, for conference solution, what can it offer for you in what situations?
But as soon as more advanced use of your meeting is expected, this is where a conferencing solution will provide real added value. I mainly think to speech moderation, of course, the electronic voting, the management of document and agenda. Majority of integrators we speak to confirm that it's much simpler and more effective to ensure a good camera tracking when speaking via a conference system. Audio capture, we all know that audio capture will never be as good as that provided by a gooseneck microphone. And gooseneck microphone allow the users to move the microphone closer to the mouth, just resulting in the best clear and transparent audio pickup. The audio reproduction is also of high quality because it's provided directly from by the conference solution, which also solves many of the configuration problems associated with the previous solutions we mentioned. And we have now new audio modes available, including hands-free mode, for instance, which means that the using of a conference system is now simpler, with no need to press a button to talk. And finally, being able to mute your microphone for a few moments for any private discussion is highly appreciated. Is a highly appreciated solution. It's also possible in a good conference system. It's not the case in the previous one.
Yeah. Okay. I think this is very insightful. Thank you very much for your contribution here. Thanks. Okay, so this brings us to our third and last question, or let's say poll, and that is for you, what is the main reason to install a conference system in a boardroom? Is it just for the audio quality? Is it mostly for the ease of installation and configuration? Is it to have the possibility to mute or to have a moderation of the meeting? Is it for the voice lifting in the room? Is it for transcription or recording? Or do you mostly use it just to have camera control? Okay, give you 2 seconds. And then we move on to our last slide. And this is in fact just an indication that this is the end of the webinar. I would like to thank you all for watching this webinar. For those of you who were not capable to look at it, you will receive a link to the webinar after this session. But you will always find back all webinars on this link that you see here under the support page. And please also make sure to follow us on our social media to stay up to date. I would like to finish by thanking you all and hope to see you back on our next webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye.